about, and I've been thinking of you. I don't play no games, I ain't anybody's fool.
Hi guys, thanks for joining me in another edition of Amy Lee Online. Today we're going to talk about camera basics and understanding ISO for beginners. So if you would like to learn how to get your camera onto manual and stay on manual, this is one of the parts of the 4-part series that you need to watch. ISO, it is called ISO because what it stands for is Image Sensor Optimization. What is ISO? Well, basically ISO is the level of sensitivity of your camera to available light. So basically what it means is it is a component within your camera that can change the sensitivity and is called an image sensor or simply just a sensor. So in layman's terms, it means the higher the ISO, the less light you need to make your image, and the lower the ISO, the more light you need to make your image. So let's break it down. Always aim for the lowest ISO setting possible to reduce the noise. So most cameras start on 100 to 200 ISO. I would suggest trying to stay around 100 to 200 to get the most crisp and sharp image. That is the lowest that you can go in general, unless you have a full frame camera like a 5D Mark III that can go sometimes down to 50. But you want to stay around 100 to 200 and that'll give you no noise. Now what noise is those dusty looking spots all over your image. So when your ISO gets too high for the camera to handle, or letting too much light in, it creates a noisy effect and it doesn't always look the best. In some images it can look quite dramatic and look really cool, reminding us of film days, but most of the time it isn't really what you're looking for. What we're looking for is a sharp, crisp image. So you want to always aim to keep your ISO settings as low as possible. For full frame cameras such as the 5D Mark III, you can really go as high as you like. It can handle up to 25,000 plus ISO. It is quite amazing and you can get really, really bright images in almost completely dark conditions. So if you were going to keep going with your photography and make it your actual profession and a career, I would suggest investing in a full frame camera. I'm not really here to tell you what brand to get. I use a Canon, so I'm going to talk about Canon. Typically ISO numbers start from 100 to 200 base ISO and they increment in value to the power of 2. So every sequence goes up by 2. So 100, then 200, then 400, 800 and so on. So basically what that means is you really need to just remember that 200 is twice as sensitive as 100 and 400 is twice as sensitive as 200. So obviously the higher the ISO, the more light you're allowing your camera to receive, and that means either more noise or you're going to have to adjust your shutter speed to get a crisper image. But we're not talking about shutter speed today, we're just talking about ISO. In part 2, we're going to break down shutter speed for you. I just want you to really try and grasp ISO. Whenever you're designing your image, I need you to look at your camera and start at your ISO first. Always start with the ISO. So how do we set ISO? Well, first you need to set your camera to manual. So that is the dial on the top of your camera that has the M. So switch the camera to M for manual. Obviously I just spoke about this, and start with your ISO when setting up your camera for the settings that you need. Okay, so we want to start with the ISO first to design your image. ISO can be found on the back of your screen by using the little raised button, which you can toggle that across to ISO. As you can see here on the right hand side of this screen, I've circled the ISO where you can find it on the back of your camera, and that's your ISO speed. Okay. Also, if you have a full frame camera, you can see the ISO and all the settings that you need to design your image on the top of your camera from the top view. And there's a little button there that says ISO, so you just click that and that will bring up the ISO and isolate that on the screen so you can change it up and down. Some guidelines to remember for when you're in natural light. Bright sun, ISO around 100, overcast day outside 200. If you're in deep shade under a tree or something like that outdoors, you might go to 400. If you're indoors on a really bright day, you can use your camera around 200 to 640 ISO. Indoors when cloudy, maybe around ISO 400 to 1250, and indoors at night 1600 plus ISO. Now here's an example on the right hand side of your screen here of the overcast day outdoors in natural light with no reflectors, and that was at 200 ISO. So these are some examples for indoors. Indoors sunny day, I've used this one on the black and white about 400 ISO. An overcast day indoors, I used it around 640, and indoors at night at a function with just the overhead lights indoors, I used it about 1600. So as you can see the difference, you can still get a really crisp image if you know how to use your camera on manual and starting with ISO. In part 2, we're going to talk about shutter speed and understanding shutter speed. And in part 3, we'll speak about understanding your camera's aperture and f-stop. And then on part 4, we're going to put it all together and use our cameras on manual. I hope you can join me for those. So thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, share and subscribe to the channel so you can get all of my upcoming videos and notifications. And I'd love to see you soon for part 2, understanding shutter speed. And remember, love what you do and do what you love, and you'll never work a day in your life. Bye for now.
Dark days of the summer with a feeling I can't refuse. Been a long time and lost what you think about it.